At Marquise Weinstein's ballroom, the master of ceremonies announces Lady Jessie Clarine, and every head turns toward the stairs. She descends in a blue gown and black choker, moving like she owns the place, while nobles gush that she looks stunning today. The attention settles on her, and she accepts it calmly as the night begins. A cluster of well-dressed women hovers close, complimenting her necklace and bragging that it is from an exclusive brand, and others keep calling for Lady Jessie. She reads their smiles for what they are, people chasing influence and scraps of favor, and lets them chatter while she takes stock of the room. Before this night, in a bright little fast food shop, a friend waved a phone and asked Yonomai to play an otome game with her. The title is Shameless, Scum X Love, and the invitation plants the seed that will change her life. She grumbles about the cringy title and skims the game's premise. The heroine is a noble daughter on the verge of ruin who must survive high society while navigating several love interests, including the blonde crown prince, a red-haired rake, and a silver-haired gentleman. The goal is to revive her fallen house without getting crushed. Curiosity wins, and she plays late into the night, then meets her friend again to vent. No matter which route she chooses, the heroine never gets a true happy ending, and the two laugh at how messed up the game design feels. She wonders why every love interest is trash, and notes that even reviews say they keep cheating after being captured. Raising affection only makes the guys worse, so she has zero interest in dating any of them. Her friend wonders if there is a hidden route where it all works out, then snorts that nothing will change unless those scumbags change first. A buzz cuts their talk and the friend takes a call, murmuring short answers. When Mai asks if it is her boyfriend, the friend nods and says she has to hurry home because he wants dinner ready, then gathers her things and rushes out. Outside, Mai spots a dark bruise on her friend's wrist and realizes where it came from. She asks if he did that, then tells her to just break up with him already. The friend admits she knows she should, but trails off. Stuck between fear and habit, Mai squeezes her friend's hand and asks to come over that night. Dusk settles over the city, and soon they reach the apartment complex, where the boyfriend lingers by the door, about to learn she is not alone. In the hallway, the man sits stunned while Mai tells him to stop getting involved with her friend. She says she hates scumbags like him and makes it clear that if he lays a hand on her again, she will not forgive him. With that, she ushers her friend inside and closes the door, leaving him to stew. He lunges from behind, barking that she should not act tough, and his shove sends her over the railing. Shock flashes through her as the floors rush past. A hand reaches for anything, and darkness answers. That is the last thing she remembers. When her eyes open again, she is no longer in a concrete courtyard, but in a gilded mansion where attendants prepare a bath. She has become Jessie Clarine, the red-haired daughter of a powerful house, and the life in front of her is nothing like the one she lost. Soaking in scented water, she pieces it together. Jessie Clarine is the villainess of Scum X Love who torments the heroine and ends up executed. She refuses to accept dying again and decides this time the script will not run her life. She asks why everyone is rushing and hears there is a ball tonight at Marquise Weinstein's estate, and the crown prince, Travis von Barlant, will be there. Hearing his name pulls up old game knowledge and every red flag attached to him. In his route, the Golden Prince is a smiling womanizer, and the Villainess who stands between him and fresh infatuations loses her head for being in the way. The guillotine makes the stakes simple and brutal. She calls it beyond unfair and tightens her hand until her knuckles ache. Dying once because of a trash man was enough, and the idea that this prince is supposed to be her fiancé only hardens her resolve to change the ending. She decides the worst part is how he struts like he owns the world. She tells the maid she has made up her mind, then sets her sights on the crown prince. That cheating scumbag is going to face consequences, and she dresses for battle disguised as a ball. Back at the ballroom, she moves through a tide of voices calling her name, noticing how nobles trail behind important people, like little satellites. She keeps her plans close and steps forward when an attendant asks to pass. She scans faces across the polished floor until her gaze lands on the girl she came to find. Lilia Forshing, the heroine of this ugly game, stands alone in a modest dress and becomes the center of Jessie's next move. She lays out 3 things she must do. First, apologize to the heroine for the bullying that once led straight to the scaffold. Second, cut off the engagement with Travis before he can use her as a shield. Third, and this one is personal, crush Travis publicly so the blame sits where it belongs. As she nears, she catches the dirty hem of the girl's dress and remembers the fountain incident that left it stained. She came prepared for this. Lilia taps her shoulder nervously and tries to speak. The girl bows so suddenly that Jessie has to step back, apologizing before any accusation is made and asking if she did something rude again. Jessie's eyes drop to the overused dress because that problem is the one she can fix right now. Nearby, socialites whisper that she is wearing the same dress she had on when she fell into the fountain and sneer that it looks gross. One of them snipes that this is probably the only dress she owns because she is poor. Jessie recognizes this exact scene from the game and decides to derail it. In the original story, she was the ringleader, but now she slices the gossips with a look that makes them flinch and walks to the girl they are targeting. She tells Lilia to lift her head. giving her something sturdier than shame to hold on to. She tells the girl she wants to apologize for ruining her dress the other day. Lilia tries to wave it off with a small smile, saying it was already a bit dirty, but Jessie shakes her head and says she will not feel right until she makes up for it. Even if another version of her did the damage, she is the one standing here now. She snaps her fingers and attendants roll out a rack full of evening dresses. She tells Lilia to pick whichever she likes. The girl protests that it is too much, but Jessie says to treat it as an apology for everything up to now. She adds that she is not asking for forgiveness just because of a few gifts and says plainly that she is sorry. Then she bows and promises she will never bully her again. The public vow ripples through the hall and makes people talk. Lilia asks why she's being so kind. Jessie knows this choice helps her avoid her own ruin, but that is not the whole reason. If she leaves the girl alone, the game's men will use her and throw her away, and Jessie refuses to watch that happen again. A memory intrudes. A frightened friend with a bruised wrist who needed someone to stand between her and a man who would not stop. It might sound strange coming from the woman who used to torment her, but Jessie reaches out anyway, offering steadiness instead of scorn, and Lilia's eyes brighten with surprise. She tells the girl she would like to be her friend and thinks she could not just stand by and do nothing. After giving space for a dress change, she waits near the tables until a soft voice calls for Lady Jessie again. A couple of acquaintances ask if she is really alright with giving Lilia so many dresses. She answers that it is fine because her closets are full, and adds that she genuinely wanted to apologize, then takes a calm sip of wine as if this were the most ordinary thing. She tells them she has turned over a new leaf, which only earns puzzled looks, and then decides it is time to finish the other 2 items on her list. Her target is not the girls who orbit him anymore, it is the prince himself. The orchestra readies a fresh piece as the crowd settles back into conversation. The dance resumes, and the doors open to reveal Lilia in a fresh light blue gown, chosen from the rack. Someone nearby says the dress is lovely, while she admits she is still not used to wearing something this fine. Before she can find Jessie, the crown prince glides in with a perfect smile, saying the soft blue matches her hair and offering a smooth apology for surprising her. He explains that she looked so radiant he could not help himself. She gathers her skirt, curtsies, and greets him formally as His Highness Prince Travis von Barlant, the shining sun of the kingdom. The prince waves off formality and asks for her name. She answers that she is Lilia Forshing, daughter of Baron Forshing. He admits he has never heard of the house, but flatters that any family who raised someone as charming as her must be exceptional. He extends a hand and invites her to dance. She freezes, remembering that Jessie helped her and that Jessie is his fiancée, and the request suddenly feels complicated. She glances toward the woman who stood up for her, and asks what about Lady Jessie, since he is engaged to her. He smiles and says he is, then reaches to touch Lilia's cheek as if the promise means nothing. He says that is nothing for her to worry about, and draws her closer, turning the moment into a performance for himself. Jessie arrives with a cool voice, calling that line cruel, and she takes the space between them without asking. He starts to call her name, but she catches his wrist and wrenches his arm in a clean motion that drops him. While he bites back a sound, she smiles and says, even though she adores him so much, there are limits. She tells him she cannot forgive him for laying a hand on her friend, and the certainty in her voice carries across the floor. She warns that if anyone tries to touch her friends, punishment will follow. With the whole hall watching, she settles Lilia safely behind her and lets the prince go, leaving him to collect himself. Then she smooths her dress and offers a courtly greeting to His Highness Prince Travis von Barlant, adding that she only meant to shake his hand, but must have twisted too hard. The polite apology after the public pin makes him blink in confusion, because this is not the clingy fiancé he expects. She remembers how the previous Jessie always lashed out at the women he toyed with, when the real problem was him. Back in the present, he asks what she is doing, and she meets his eyes, so there is no mistake about where the blame sits now. She answers that he is dancing with other women and leaving his fiancée behind. He calls her jealous, same as always, then spreads his arms and declares himself the little son of the empire, as if status excuses everything. He asks whether anyone can expect the son to be monogamous. She answers with a flat ugh, and says it makes her sick that someone like him is her fiancé. She sighs and explains she is not jealous, she is disgusted by his behavior. She adds that his attitude is what set her off, and asks the little son of the empire to remember her words. If he touches her friends again, next time it will not end with just twisting his arm. The threat lands hard enough to make him stare. She turns to the audience and notes that there are plenty of witnesses. She apologizes for the disturbance and adds that His Highness's overreaction was troublesome, and the nobles trade quick looks because the framing hits its mark. With the room attentive, she says that since so many people are here, she has an announcement. Jessie Clorane wishes to break off her engagement with His Highness Prince Travis. The prince freezes, the crowd erupts in shock, and Lilia stares wide-eyed as the balance of the entire social game shifts. The ballroom erupts after the engagement break, a stunned cry cutting through the music, and outside the estate the night settles hard over the decision as the nobles scatter to whisper and plot. The next day she is summoned to the Clorane estate, and she walks toward the reception room thinking there was never any information about Jessie's father in the game, so she wonders what kind of person he really is before pushing the doors open. Noreha Cloran waits with tea already poured and greets her politely, then tells her to sit. She steps closer and can tell he is holding something in, which makes her brace for a scolding about last night. He says her name and then asks if that man was violent with her, and when she blinks in confusion he shoots to his feet, wanting to know if her head and body are all right, the protective instinct coming out so fast it leaves her blinking. He declares that the man must have done something, and she lifts both hands asking him to calm down, starting to say father, but he cuts in because she usually calls him papa, and the doting correction throws her more than any anger would have. She adjusts to the reality that the feared patriarch is a soft papa, and then asks why he assumed she was being abused. He explains he heard she suddenly ended her engagement, which sounded serious enough to mean someone had hurt her. He reminds her that she once cried and begged for that engagement and says it is obvious to think something went wrong when she is the one who broke it off, adding he just knew that stupid prince would do something wrong. She tells him not to worry because she was neither abused nor hurt, which relaxes him enough to ask why she ended it. She asks if he knew about the cheating, and he says of course, but the girl he remembers insisted she did not mind, then admits the prince has gone too far. She answers that her patience ended, and the father, who has been holding back, looks relieved to hear her say it out loud. He apologizes for ever putting the announcement on her, and admits he never wanted to hand his daughter to a man like that anyway, then tells her to leave the engagement problem to him because the mess is partly the prince's fault. She thanks him with a real smile. On her way out, a maid brings a tray with an envelope, and announces a letter from Lady Lilia, and curiosity sends her breaking the seal immediately. The letter is an invitation to sample sweets at a family shop, which seems harmless enough, and she thinks nothing of it then, while a stray memory of a cocky redhead throwing his weight around in the city flickers through her mind like a warning she does not register yet. She sets the letter aside, unaware that this small tasting will lead straight to that incident. The message explains they are launching a new product at Lilia's father's sweet shop and asks her to grace the event as a token of gratitude for the dress, which makes her mutter that inviting the person who has made your life miserable and calling it gratitude is bold. She studies the wording and wonders if it is confidence or just carelessness, then decides to go. Her carriage rattles to the far edge of the market quarter following a hand-drawn map, and she cannot believe the shop sits this far out, but she keeps going. On the way, she recalls what she knows from the game, that Lilia's parents are terrible at business, and their gullibility is the downfall, because they always fall for profit-making scams and the Baron's household is already crumbling. She reaches the modest storefront, pushes the door with a small doubt about the address, and Lilia rushes out from behind the counter to welcome her. She answers with a calm good afternoon and steps inside. The place is empty, so she asks if they closed for her, and Lilia laughs that it is their day off, but the truth is it stays quiet even when open. The girl brightens and says this new sweet will change everything, so she wants a brutally honest opinion. She agrees to taste, which earns frantic thanks because the baker does not have many friends to ask. Then a tray appears with 3 neat little tarts, and she agrees they look quite nice before taking one. Lilia beams that this is her masterpiece and urges a taste, so she bites and immediately finds her jaw meeting something better suited for masonry than dessert. She presses her forehead to the table and decides it is so bad she cannot even pretend, and for all the game warned her about Lilia's clumsiness, this still outdoes it. There is no way that thing can be sold, so she calls the baker over and gets a nervous yes in return. She asks to use the kitchen, rolls up her sleeves, and in short order whips up a batch of pale pink macarons until a glass stand is filled and the air smells like sugar and almonds. Lilia squeals that they look adorable and asks if she can try, and with a nod she takes a bite and melts at the crisp shell and soft center, hands pressed to her cheeks in shock at the flavor. The baker gushes that she has never even seen a sweet like this, and it tastes amazing, and the redhead tells her it is called a macaron, and offers to teach the method so they can line it up in the store. Gratitude spills out before they start discussing steps. A heavy crash interrupts the lesson, and they open the back room to find boards cracked and dust drifting, while a red-haired stranger stands by the window like he owns the place. Lilia asks who he is, and the man grins that he is just dropping by for a bit because something smelled good, as if that explains the broken door behind him. Recognition hits the baker, who stammers the name Aldo, and the man turns sharp, asking who she is and how she knows him. She realizes the timeline is early for this encounter and identifies him from memory as Aldo Seren Delgado, the head of the Delgado clan that lives in the forest north of Saurorians. A man fated to cross roots as a love interest. That clan lives by one rule, strength rules, which lets arrogance slide and keeps the weak quiet, and because they do whatever they want, most people hate them. He snaps at her to answer, testing how far he can push here. He closes the distance and says it is rude to ignore someone like him, while she notes he's the strongest of his people and one of the key roots, which only makes his swagger worse. She remembers how he pops up in all sorts of places in the game and thinks the order is already scrambled, then addresses him plainly as the Delgado chief and mentions he is quite well known here. He hums that she catches on fast for a woman, and says he came to eat because he smelled something good, then asks if that is a problem. She points to the shattered boards and asks if he destroyed the place just for that. He demands to know who made the sweet so he can praise them, and then sneers that there is no way it was her, because she looks weak and probably cannot even do chores or cook, asking if all noblewomen are this boring while he leans in to crowd her space. Lilia appears at the doorway and he pivots, deciding she must be the cook, and he starts to praise her for the delicious sweet, saying the scent drew him in. She flusters and tries to explain she was not the one. He leans in to sniff at her like she is game on a hunt, then catches sight of the tarts on the side table and announces that there is another one to try. He plucks up the failed tart, certain it must taste good too, and ignores Lilia's warning before taking a hearty bite that turns into a grind that taxes even his jaw. Pain and rage flash across his face as he spits out what the hell this is, calling it so hard and so bad that it is the worst thing he has ever tasted. Then he throws it down and barks at Lilia that she must be the one who made the good one. She blurts that Lady Jessie made it. He turns toward the redhead and she clamps a hand on his shoulder, asking what is with him doing whatever he pleases, then orders him to sit down right now with a weight in her voice that brooks no argument. She repeats the order to sit down, and the man who lives by force finds his body listening before his pride can't. He tries to laugh it off and asks what is wrong with her for ordering him around when she is a woman, so she tells him he did not hear her and repeats the command to sit. His knees hit the floor before his mouth can finish the smirk. He gulps, wondering if he just got frightened because he cannot move at all, while she stands over him and begins pointing at every bit of damage here, here, and here, building a list he will not be able to dodge. She finishes the inventory seated by the split door and says he made a mess, adding that breaking the door was unnecessary and asking if he did it to show off his strength. Then she stands and tells him she despises selfish people who cause trouble for others. He tries to loom to save face, but she adds that she cannot forgive wasting food, then tells him to apologize to the baker and guides him toward the girl waiting on the steps. He wrestles with the words and manages a flat apology to Lilia, then angles for the exit, asking if that is enough because he will leave now. She smiles brightly and says, of course not. She points at the wreck and says he will fix everything in the store, and when he sputters about why someone like him should do that, one look from her ends the argument. She explains it is precisely because someone like him broke things here, tells him not to complain, and orders him to fix it right now, punctuating the command with a brisk clap that sends him moving. The sounds of hasty repairs fill the back room while she steps outside to breathe, thinking the day is already ending, and she only came to eat sweets yet somehow wound up negotiating with the musclehead. Lilia thanks her again, saying she was saved thanks to her, and the redhead brushes it off but thinks Aldo is the type to come back because he believes the strong are superior, and today he lost to a woman. She decides to head home before anything else turns strange. On the way out, she peers into a side alley just to confirm it is safe, and finds a blue-haired man slumped with a stab to the abdomen. She goes to him quickly as his eyes flutter open. A high scream rings somewhere in the streets as she kneels, muttering ow under her breath while lifting his head to check his breathing and focus. He stays half-conscious against her arm, too weak to speak, and she steadies him, already choosing not to abandon him. Back in the alley, she supports the wounded stranger and calls for attention with a sharp, doing a quick scan for help while keeping his head steady against her skirt so he can breathe. She catches herself thinking he is a hottie, shakes the thought away and focuses. She asks if he is all right, but he does not respond, and when she lifts her hand, she sees it smeared with blood, which confirms the stab is real and still dangerous. She checks the gash and calls to Lilia, asking if there's a hospital close by. Lilia explains the proper clinic is in the center of town and too far, then offers to summon their household doctor instead, so the redhead decides to bring him home for faster treatment. She gets him up with a grunt and asks Lilia to help. Then they carry the deadweight together, apologizing to passers-by as they go. Soon the view widens to the sprawling Clorane estate, where she intends to treat him safely. In a guest room, the family doctor inspects the bandaged abdomen and concludes a sharp object caused it. He adds the cut is not deep and rest will be enough, then leaves with a maid. She watches them go and thinks a sharp object is still dangerous if whoever used it is nearby. She decides they will care for him until he wakes and tells a maid to ready a bedroom and get her father's permission. The servant answers as you wish. She remains by the bedside to watch his breathing and keep him stable. He sleeps quietly while she studies his face. She still does not recognize him from the game she knows, even though this world's leads are all striking. From Lilia to the Crown Prince Travis, and even Aldo. Whoever he is, he was not on the roster. She admits to herself he looks like a main character and then waves the thought away as overthinking. His eyes open, confusion sets in, and he pushes himself upright, asking where he is while she moves closer to study him. She tells him to avoid moving so the wound does not reopen. He looks around, asking where on earth he is and who she might be. She gives her name, Jessie Clorane, explains this is her room in House Clorane, and tells him he passed out earlier after being stabbed with a sharp object. He glances at the bandages, then meets her eyes and thanks her, calling her his life savior. She waves it off as exaggeration and asks for his name, which only gets a puzzled as he fails to answer. Silence stretches while he searches his mind for anything that resembles a name or a place, and worry creeps in when nothing comes. His fingers tighten around the blanket and he admits he does not know. He clarifies that even his own name, where he lives, and the reason he was stabbed are gone from his head. He concludes that he does not remember a single thing, confirming complete amnesia. He reiterates that his name, his home, and the cause of the stabbing are all missing, and the room goes quiet around that fact. She checks that this means he lost his memories and watches his expression, deciding he is not faking it. She wonders if the shock of being stabbed caused it. He lowers his gaze and apologizes for the trouble. She tells him not to apologize because it is not his fault. Then she considers the practical problem, since he has no identity and nowhere to return. She cannot just say goodbye and push him back onto the street like this. And that realization sparks an idea. She offers a simple solution, telling him he can stay until his memories return. He jolts in surprise and questions how they can take in a complete stranger, but she reminds him he does not even know who he is or where to return in the first place. She answers that she is not so heartless as to abandon someone in that state, and funds are not a concern in her household. He says she is a nice person. She shrugs, and admits it would just feel wrong to leave him like this. A knock interrupts, and Noreha steps in with a maid. She calls him Dad. He looks the patient over and asks if this is the person she intends to house, and she confirms it is. The wounded man stands to show respect while she explains that he was stabbed in the abdomen, lost consciousness, and woke without memories. That is why she wants him to stay here while he recovers. Her father says it is fine by him if she has judged him safe, and there is nothing more to add. She thanks him, looks back at the patient, almost calls him by a name, and stops as she remembers he does not have one. Then her gaze lingers on those teal eyes. Staring at his eyes, she mutters teal and then cyan, and lands on a solution, proposing Chianzi as a stand, a name he can use. He tries the sound of it and asks if Chianzi is right. She explains she picked it for his eye color and checks whether he hates it, and he answers that he likes it. Noreha then mentions there is another issue and slides an envelope across. He informs her that a letter from the royal family has arrived and hands over a wax-sealed envelope, which she accepts warily. She reads that regarding the engagement between Lady Jessie and Crown Prince Travis, her request for annulment is rejected because His Highness has not consented, and the palace demands she retract her declaration and apologize for the incident. She shoots up with a furious "What did you say?" and grips the page tighter. She crushes the paper in her hands and throws it down, admitting she never expected him to reject annulment. She figured he would gladly get rid of a nuisance, but the Crown Prince is incredibly popular and cannot stand being the one rejected, so now he wants her to bow her head. Noreha remembers there was another item in the delivery and hands over a second envelope that arrived with the royal order. She breaks the second seal, scans the cursive lines, and reads silence, eyes narrowing as she pieces together what the palace expects next. She decides the addendum is a ball invitation from the royal family. The timing makes the trap obvious, a perfect stage to make her apologize and label her push for annulment reckless. Her father asks how she plans to answer. She begins to refuse and then stops as a better plan forms. If she skips the ball, he will spread baseless rumors and turn the court against her again as selfish. So she decides to attend and crush him completely in front of everyone, then thinks through what precise move will flip the narrative. Her gaze falls on Chianzi, the idea clicks, and she calls him over, asking if he can change into something proper for an appearance. He returns in a sharp black suit and says, "Sorry to keep you waiting." Noreha eyes him up and down and jokes that a hottie looks good on everything, while a nearby maid quietly swoons. She tells him he looks handsome, and he thanks her, a bit shy. Deciding the presentation will work, she faces her father and declares she will accept the invitation and tell Prince Travis again, since he clearly will not understand otherwise. Noreha checks if she is sure, and she says yes. Linking arms with him, she settles on the boldest version of the plan, deciding to introduce him to society as her new lover so the prince looks like the one clinging. Chianzi blinks in shock at the sudden promotion. She repeats the line with a confident smile that she will introduce him as her new lover, and he stays a little startled, trying to catch up. Her father practically yelps at lover and asks since when, which makes Chianzi stumble over a response. She steps in and clarifies that he is not her real lover and will only be acting the part for a purpose, which eases Noreha's panic a notch. She explains to Chianzi that she already has a fiancé. He asks if the person who sent the letter is that man, and the maid confirms. She names him as Travis, the crown prince of this nation, which makes Chianzi stammer crown prince. She adds she has been thinking of breaking off the engagement, and he asks why she wants that. She answers plainly that it is because he is a total cheating scumbag, but her annulment request was rejected. Chianzi asks how that turns into him acting as her lover, and she walks him through it, asking why Travis sent the invitation. He guesses it is to make her apologize for embarrassing him. She agrees that is likely, since the ball will let him make her apologize and paint the breakup as her reckless act. That is where Chianzi comes in. If she arrives with a new partner on her arm, it becomes obvious he is the one shamelessly clinging to an engagement she has already walked away from. She pictures the court's reaction and cannot help a wicked little laugh, then tells him she will not put him in a pinch and he can turn this down. He smiles and says he understands, asking to act as her lover because she saved his life, Lady Jessie. He adds that he wants to repay the favor, and she seizes his hands and thanks, grinning. Noreha studies him from the side while she asks if she can take this partner to the ball. After a moment, Noreha nods and gives permission, confirming the name as Chianzi. Then his tone hardens as he warns that if anything happens to his daughter, he will never forgive him. Chianzi bows formally and promises to keep that in mind. When the room clears that evening, Noreha quietly asks his butler whether it is really alright to bring a man of unknown origins as Lady Jessie's companion, then answers himself that caution is needed and orders Xianxi's background to be investigated thoroughly. The butler answers understood and heads off. Passing a tall window, Noreha replays the young man's posture and polished bow and concludes those gestures belong to someone trained in etiquette, which likely means he is not from a commoner background. Watching the two stand together, he grows more certain the stranger is refined, then wonders which family would produce a man with manners like that. Time jumps forward to the day of the royal ball. At the palace gate, guards stop each carriage and announce that identities will be confirmed before entry as the guests begin to disembark. She descends in a dark green gown and the gate detail recognizes her at once, apologizing and addressing her as Lady Jessie Clarine. The gate swings open and they allow entry, which she accepts with a polite thank you as she proceeds toward the venue. An usher spots the cloaked young man following at her side and stops him, stating that servants must wait in a separate area. Xianxi pauses without complaint, and she turns with a small smile. That says this will be corrected now. She answers there is no need, because he is her partner for today, slipping her arm through his to make the point. A moment later they stand together in full dress, her in green and him in a crisp blue uniform with white gloves, ready to face the crowd. They step into the ballroom arm in arm, and the murmur starts at once, with people asking who that man is and calling him lovely. She notes the response as excellent, exactly the kind of buzz she wanted. Then Lilia hurries over with a bright greeting that it has been a while, happy to see her again. Jessie welcomes Lilia warmly and says she looks good in that dress, and the pink-haired girl thanks her while admitting she keeps relying on Lady Jessie. To fold her partner into the circle, Jessie formally introduces Lilia to Xianxi, and he bows with practiced grace and says it is a pleasure to meet you. The introduction lands exactly as intended, stirring attention around them, but Lilia freezes for a beat, lets out a tiny gasp, and her memory jumps to the night when she and Jessie hauled an unconscious stranger through the dark hallway. She studies the man in the blue uniform and wonders if he is perhaps the one from that time, realizing this partner is not just handsome window dressing, but the same amnesiac they helped rescue. Relief breaks across Lilia as she tells Xianxi that thank God he has recovered well, and Jessie adds that this friend is the one who helped her carry him. He responds with sincere gratitude, saying thank you so much for saving me back then, and the girl dismisses the credit, saying not to worry about it and that she is glad he is safe and sound. Then curiosity takes over and she asks why he is here at the ball, calling him Xianxi. That is Jessie's cue, and she draws a breath to unveil the ruse they planned, beginning with the words the truth is, ready to declare him her partner for tonight to flip the palace gossip against Travis.